how do I get rid of this bloating? How do I get rid of this inflammation? Because we know that if inflammation is high and bloating is high, it blocks our fat burning pathways, making it very difficult to be able to lose weight. You are never going to lose weight until we address the root cause, which for a lot of women, somehow we figure out all the factors. It's going to come down to cortisol and inflammation almost every single time. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I am your host and CEO of Vitality OET. We are a women's nutrition, health, and fitness coaching company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly as they start going through perimenopause and onwards. And today is episode 200. I cannot believe it. It is crazy that we are this far. That makes me so happy. And today's topic, I think, is a very good one because it's a question that I get all the time. How do I get rid of this bloating? How do I get rid of this inflammation? Because we know that if inflammation is high and bloating is high, it blocks our fat burning pathways, making it very difficult to be able to lose weight. And so how do we address this? First, I'm going to dig down into the differences of what bloating is versus inflammation, the symptoms of causes of both of those, why things get worse once we hit our 40s and 50s, that we're struggling with this more than we used to, and then of course the solutions to get rid of that so you can open up those fat burning pathways so you can feel confident, feel good, lose the weight. I do want to let you know that our summer challenge is back. It's one of our most popular challenges. It's 4 weeks dedicated to this specifically, to dropping inflammation, to dropping that bloating, to see some inches come off, to feel good heading into summertime. So if you want information on that, it will be in the show notes for you. There is an opportunity to win $500 cash or a discount off of coaching as well. So applications are open right now. We sold out very quickly last time, so make sure you do not wait. So let's dive into the meat and potatoes of today, all things bloating and inflammation. So let's touch on bloating first. What is that? Because it's different than inflammation. Bloating is that physical sensation of fullness, of pressure, of swelling in your belly. It's often going to be from, gas, maybe some fluid retention. Slow digestion is a really big one here. And so what this involves is obviously your digestive tract. We're talking, your gas buildup. We're talking constipation. We're talking sluggish transit time, or even gut inflammation, which we're going to head into in a little bit here. And it can be caused by what you eat, how you eat, when you eat, but also some hormonal shifts that we're going to dive into. Some common symptoms with bloating specifically versus inflammation is that you get that distended, swollen belly feeling, even if you haven't overeaten. We have pressure or gurgling or discomfort in our gut. Clothes feel tighter by the afternoon or evening. So you put on clothes, you feel good. And then by the end of the day, you're like, I need to get these jeans off right now. I cannot handle anything being tight around my stomach. And it also can come and go throughout the day where you get bloated and then it kind of disappears and you're like, what the heck is going on? So root causes, especially for women over 40, we find it can be from lower stomach acid, estrogen dominance or low progesterone, which is what happens during perimenopause and menopause, constipation or irregular bowel movements. We're supposed to have 1 to 2, 3 bowel movements a day. Most women are not getting that. Poor gut bacteria balance. So this is where things like SIBO and Candida and dysbiosis come into play. Stress, because cortisol slows down your digestion and drives up inflammation, which we're going to dive into. And then food intolerance is obviously things like, if you have food intolerance to myself, soy, I blow up like a balloon immediately and I actually start puking. It's not a good situation. Sugar alcohols is a big one for myself as well. This is why I can't have a lot of protein bars. I can't have a ton of protein powders. There are very specific ones that I can have that my body can actually tolerate. So that's bloating. Then we have inflammation. So what is inflammation? Because inflammation is not necessarily a bad thing. We do need some of it in our body, believe it or not. And so inflammation is a protective reactionary response to something going on in your body. Your body is trying to protect you, which is a good thing. So we have acute inflammation and then chronic long-term inflammation. So acute inflammation is your body's natural response to an injury or an infection. So for example, when you cut yourself or you twist an ankle or you catch a cold, your immune system is going to turn on and activate inflammatory processes in your body to help protect and heal us. So this is where, if you cut yourself, you're going to see your skin gets maybe a little red, swollen, warm to touch, a little tender, right? This is a sign of your immune cells flooding to that area to fight off any potential infection to begin that healing process. So acute inflammation, which we want, is going to be that redness, that heat, that swelling, pain. Sometimes we see a loss of function in that area too, right? We can't be as mobile if we roll our ankle or hurt our wrist. Those are hallmark classic symptoms of your acute inflammation. It means that your body is working to repair the damage or eliminate infection. That is good. However, we also have something called long-term chronic inflammation, and this can go like unnoticed for a very long time, which is why we need to be so on top of this. So in contrast to that short-term acute inflammation, chronic inflammation is lower grade. It is persistent. It doesn't go away quickly. And again, you might not have any obvious symptoms initially. So when we start experiencing symptoms, which I'm going to go into right away here, if you start experiencing these, you were probably dealing with inflammation much longer and for quite some time before you actually start feeling these symptoms. And so this is why we need to recognize, sometimes it takes longer to address because it's been going on for a very long time. So an example would be like a chronic inflammation may arise from prolonged stress, poor diet, smoking, exposure to environmental toxins. And instead of healing, it gradually just harms your body. So some symptoms are going to be like, more under wraps that you just you don't even bat an eye to because you think it's just normal life. It might be, I might have a little bit of joint pain sometimes. Maybe I'm having some bloating, must have been something I ate, right? Some digestive issues, maybe brain fog, and you just, I'm just tired, right? Maybe you're experiencing fatigue. You're like, it's because I just haven't been sleeping well. Or these are all signs of inflammation slowly creeping up. So when our body is responding to inflammation, this is kind of what happens. So inflammation begins with the immune system recognizing that threat, right? That cut, that injury, whatever it might be. So sometimes it's just damaged cells. And when our immune system detects a threat, it releases signaling molecules called cytokines. And they are going to communicate with our white blood cells and direct them to the problem area. So they're like, hey, there's something going on over here. Can you please get in here? So it's like the signaling response, almost like a siren being like, hey, we have a problem. Come get it. Come get it. Come get it. Then these immune cells trigger a cascade of responses to isolate and eliminate the threat. So it kind of brings in SWAT. SWAT comes in and kind of surrounds the threat to help, attack invaders like bacteria and viruses, or it helps repair damaged cell tissues. And it creates the signs of the redness, the heat, the swelling associated with inflammation, but it might be on a lower grade, right? And so the key point here is that inflammation is vital when there is a healthy response to threats. It's how our body is going to repair itself, but it's supposed to be a short-term thing. The problem starts when inflammation becomes chronic and outlasts its productive function. So it's like your body is always being signaled, hey, there's something going on here, something going on here, something going on here. And so you get all this like pro-inflammation SWAT team in your body working to try and figure out where the threat actually is, and it can't actually find it. And then eventually other things in our body start breaking down. We start having all these different symptoms. And there's a lot of categories of symptoms. So let me bring them down for you. The first one is neurological and cognitive. So this is poor concentration and brain fog, low mood and anxiety, fatigue. Even after sleeping, you are still tired. Sleep disturbances where you wake up in the middle of the night or you're struggling to fall asleep. Then we have our musculoskeletal system. This is joint pain and stiffness, especially in the morning. Muscle aches and weakness, slower recovery after workouts, or you find that you have a surgery or an injury and it takes longer to recover from those. It seems like you're down longer. Then we have metabolic and weight symptoms, unexplained weight gain, especially around the belly, insulin resistance and blood sugar crashes, difficulty losing weight even though you are doing everything right. You're eating less, you're moving more, you're eating clean, you're having your protein, right? You're doing all the right stuff. Or you have cravings very often, especially for sugary processed foods. Then we have digestive symptoms like the bloating that we just talked about, constipation, loose stools, food sensitivities that seem to get worse over time that you never had before. Leaky gut or IBS type symptoms. How many of us started getting IBS diagnosis when we started going through perimenopause and menopause? A lot of us. Then hormonal, we have worse PMS type symptoms. We have irregular periods, heavier bleeding, estrogen dominant symptoms like the bloating, the mood swings, the breast tenderness, low progesterone symptoms like sleeping issues, anxiety, irritability, adrenal dysfunction symptoms. So this is things like you're exhausted, but your brain won't turn off. That is a really, really big one. Energy crashes. Our immune and skin, so frequent colds and infections, rashes, eczema, acne, puffy face, under eye swelling, skin that feels kind of dull or inflamed, puffy. And then other red flags are swollen lymph nodes and puffy hands and feet, headaches and migraines, elevated CRP, which is your inflammatory marker, homocysteine, or even ferritin on your labs. And so there's a lot of symptoms of inflammation that also go hand in hand with perimenopause and menopause. And we're going to talk about why in a little bit here. So what is causing all of this? Because as you can tell, inflammation sucks. It comes with some not so fun side effects, including weight gain. And so why chronic inflammation develops is when our immune system, like I said, stays in that heightened state of alert, often due to lifestyle factors, like I mentioned, the stress, the poor diet, exposure to toxins, not sleeping enough, autoimmune diseases, long-term stress can also all trigger chronic inflammation. So here's a pretty big list that you guys can check off. How many of these things do you have experience consume? Alcohol. Big on inflammation. Caffeine can increase inflammation in some people. Food molecules, food intolerances, smoking, physical and emotional stress. So doing too much exercise, over-exercising, not the best relationships and support, right? Hyperactive immune system. We have toxin exposure, which our world is more toxic than it's ever been before. The standard American diet. This is where we're having a lot of highly processed foods. We're not having our whole foods, our fruits, our veggies. We're eating out a lot, right? No activity or movement, so being quite sedentary. Chronic infection history, obesity, if you struggle with blood sugar control, if you have dyslipidemia, so that means like if your LDL and HDL and triglycerides and cholesterol are not in good ranges. We can also see overtraining, like I mentioned, trauma, grief, lack of sleep. These are all things that drive up inflammation big time. And the impact on the body is like, it's not like acute inflammation. It is just wearing down your body because your body, like I mentioned, has these sirens going off all the time, being like, hey, there's something here. Hey, there's something here. Imagine if our like police force or firefighters or ambulance, like all the people who are like doing the good stuff, God's work, keeping us safe, the doctors, the nurses. Imagine if they never got a break. Imagine if they are always in crisis mode all the time. There is never downtime. That is what's happening to your body. So this is kind of like, I like to paint this picture of going for a hike. If you're going for a hike, and you're enjoying the sounds, you're listening to the birds, you smell the fresh dew on the grass, you're taking in all the colors, you hear the water running from the stream. How amazing of an experience is that hike? Fantastic. Now imagine that you are constantly just on the lookout for bears the entire time. When you get off that hike, you're exhausted, like your body is just exhausted and stressed. That's what's happening internally when your body is constantly got these sirens going and you're trying to like deal with whatever's going on, but you have no idea that this is happening. But internally, your body is like wearing down so much because it's like you're constantly on this hike, constantly looking for danger all of the time. That's exhausting, right? And no amount of sleep is going to help you. And even when you're sleeping, this inflammation is not coming down, right? Because we've got all these other things going on. And so there's a lot of health risks when it comes with chronic inflammation that you need to be aware of. It is linked to a range of health conditions like heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, even depression. And these are all things that we're already more likely to experience and get simply because we are women and we are in that threshold of perimenopause, menopause. So 35, 40 and up, Like we're already at increased risk of developing these things because of the changes in hormones. And it's also important to know that when we have inflammation, it is going to influence our hormone levels so much. We know that if inflammation goes up, cortisol is going to go up. That's our stress hormone. We know cortisol is that puppeteer master that controls everything. If cortisol is high, we see progesterone can't be produced. We see estrogen being dysregulated. We see testosterone can go down. We see androgens can go up. We can see our thyroid function start to slow down. We start to lose muscle mass despite working out. We are seeing our liver function decrease. So our detoxification gets worse, which means there's more toxins accumulating in our body, which increases even more inflammation. And when we have more toxins in our body stores those in fat to try and keep us safe. But when it does that, those fat cells increase more inflammation and the fat cell structure itself changes, making that fat cell harder to break down, making it even harder to lose fat. And then we have to add on top of that, that more inflammation is going to slow down your digestion, leading to even more inflamed gut, more food sensitivities, which are going to trigger an even higher inflammatory response. So you can see how this just keeps going and going and going, and it just leads to this cascade. And so we keep doing things thinking that it's helping, like eating less and moving more and fasting and cutting carbs and being go and exercising all the time. And there are no rest days and I have to be productive all the time. And I have deadlines here and I have to also help my kid with this and my spouse with this. And I'm volunteering for this and I'm doing that. That is all cortisol, and cortisol itself will increase inflammation. Inflammation is going to do all the things that we just talked about in that cycle because it's going to increase cortisol even more. And when our hormones decline, it's a lot easier for inflammation to go up and it's a lot easier for cortisol to go up. So you can see how the very things that we're trying to do to help ourselves actually make the cycle worse because we're pushing harder. Not to mention, as inflammation and cortisol go up, blood sugar control also gets worse. It also gets worse when estrogen goes down. And so you will see worse blood sugar control despite the fact that you are eating less and you are fasting and you are cutting carbs, because inflammation and cortisol are going to drive up insulin resistance. And this is where so many people get it wrong. And I know that was just a lot and I just threw up on you, but like I want you to understand how much this matters for our health. And when we are in this space of high cortisol, low hormones, worse blood sugar control, low thyroid function, poor gut health, poor liver detoxification, losing muscle mass, all of those things and the inflammation itself makes it so our body can't bring energy into our cells. So we are exhausted all of the time. And when this happens and that inflammation is high, inflammation blocks your fat burning pathway. You will see an overstimulated growth pathway, which tells your body, we have enough, let's store. Despite the fact that you are eating less and you are moving more and you are eating your protein and you are getting clean whole foods in. If your fat burning pathway is blocked because of inflammation and your storage pathway is overstimulated, you are never going to lose weight until we address the root cause, which for a lot of women, somehow we figure out all the factors. It's going to come down to cortisol and inflammation almost every single time. Almost every single time. And we need to figure out how do we stop this crazy cycle that we just talked about. And so when we're talking about bloating versus inflammation, like bloating is typically a symptom of inflammation, but they both contribute to each other. Bloating will make inflammation worse. Inflammation will make bloating worse. So again, we have to learn where to break the cycle, which is why this challenge is always so successful for women, because they actually learn how do we stop this crazy cycle of it just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Because the harder you push, the more bloated you get. The harder you push, the more tired you are. And it's not working. And your waistline isn't getting any smaller with all the effort that you're putting in. And so we need to address this first. And I had to do this too. I went into a fat loss phase. I was at around like 1,600 calories in there. And all of a sudden I started gaining weight. And I took my Dutch test. I saw, likely inflammation is high. My detoxification is not good. Hormones were low. Cortisol was high. So I actually had to stop working out for 6 weeks. I increased my calories. I focused on the kinds of foods that I was eating. I was focusing on bringing my inflammation down, and I lost 7 pounds very quickly. It was just a matter of weeks, which is shocking for me because I know these things, but you always think that you're the exception to the rule. And this just goes to show like you have to work and listen to your body. Sometimes doing more exercise and sometimes doing less food is not the answer. And if you've been cutting calories, which should technically open up your fat burning pathway, and you've been doing the fasting, that should technically open up that fat burning pathway. When those aren't working, there is something else blocking your fat burning pathway. It's usually a combination of stress, inflammation, and hormones. And so we need to dive deeper into that. And so when we look at why does this get worse once we hit 35, 40, 45, 50, there's a lot of stuff happening here. And like I myself have experienced this because before I had my son, we didn't know if we were going to be able to have a baby because my estrogen and progesterone were in the postmenopausal range. My testosterone was so low. My androgens through the roof. My cortisol so high. And then I got there again. And so we've been working on this for the past few months and really focusing on improving my health. And so we know that estrogen and progesterone are going to impact a lot of things in our body. It impacts every single system. And so we see that it will slow digestion. It will impact your fluid retention and increase your gut sensitivity as well as cortisol. We're going to talk about that in a second here separately. So estrogen plays a very key role in your gut motility and bile production. So what that means is it helps keep our gut moving. It keeps it like kind of crunching along like a worm to move food down through your digestive system. And bile production, which is very important for being able to break down fat. And so when it drops, we see that bile flow will slow down, which makes it harder to break down fats from our diets, which can lead to bloating and constipation. We see our gut bacteria start to shift because it favors strains that promote inflammation and bloating, because estrogen plays a very key role in our gut microbiome. And estrogen also influences your serotonin production, which affects the movement of food through the gut and you feeling happy. Serotonin is your happy hormone. So we actually need more serotonin than we did before because of the loss of estrogen. Our receptors aren't as sensitive, but also when with less estrogen, we produce less serotonin. And so we need to make sure our gut's nice and healthy. That's where the majority of that happy hormone is made. Because if you're not in a good mood, do you want to have an apple? No. You want ice cream and to sit on the couch. You don't want to go for a walk and relax. You want to like binge anger scroll. Right? So it's important to note how this is going to impact multiple things in your body and the choices that we make, right? And some choices are going to make it more likely that we're going to experience inflammation, and other choices are going to make it more likely that we're not going to experience inflammation. And then we have progesterone. Progesterone is our calming hormone. It is what makes us feel relaxed, helps our nervous system feel good. And when it's low, it also impacts our gut by making it more reactive, leading to more IBS-like symptoms. Who has gone to the doctor and they're like, oh, you have IBS. Or we can support my hormones. That'd be like a really cool thing to do, right? We also know progesterone is going to help support water balance and your smooth muscle relaxation. So without it, we see that digestion feels like tighter, slower. We're more prone to having bloating. And so overall, estrogen and progesterone going down, we see a sluggish digestion, we see more bloating, irregular bowel movements, greater sensitivity to certain foods that we didn't have before. And then that brings us into cortisol, because cortisol is that stress hormone that I said impacts everything. And so what we see is that it impacts our gut lining as well, our microbiome, and our bloating patterns. So when we are in a stress state, cortisol is high, which, by the way, most of us are experiencing this, myself included. I love my job. It is so fulfilling, but I am on, right? I am on for podcasting. I am on for client calls. I am on when I'm speaking on stages at events and networking and all those things. And so when you are on, your body needs extra energy to meet that demand. It perceives that as a stress, even if you don't perceive that as a stress. I don't see it as a stress. I see it as something that I love, and it sets my soul on fire, and I love it, and it's so fulfilling. My body's like, this takes a lot of energy, girl. And so when I don't have enough energy to meet that demand, cortisol is going to go up. And so what happens is we are stressed all the time from under eating, over-exercising, fasting, skipping meals, inconsistent calorie intake, not getting enough protein, not getting enough whole foods. We're eating highly inflammatory foods. We have grief and trauma and deadlines at work. And sometimes we like our partner and sometimes we want to smother them with a pillow. And sometimes we're not sleeping really well and we're go, go, go. And we're the taxi mom. And then someone asks us what's for dinner and we want to just scream. Right? And then you get to the end of the day and you're like, I'm bloated, I'm fat, and I feel like crap. And now that's affecting your relationship with your partner as well. Right? Like we're not feeling good. It's because we're in this state of stress all of the time. And when our hormones start to decline, it's like our stress tolerance decreases. We have this dinner plate with all the stress and demands and everything on top of it, and we could handle it. But then as estrogen and progesterone go down, that dinner plate turns into a side salad plate. And now what you can handle is a lot less. And you're like, but Stephanie, I haven't changed anything. And all of a sudden I'm gaining weight and I'm not sleeping and this, that, and the other. And it's like, yes, because hormones, but also you didn't change anything that you're doing outwardly, but internally things have changed. And now what you can tolerate goes down and we need to change that. We are not the same as we were when we were 20 or 30. And we're definitely not the same as a freaking man. We are different. And so we need to change what we are doing to match the inside. Because otherwise you keep pushing and pushing and pushing and eating less and moving more and eating less and moving more. And what does that do? More stress on that plate. Increases cortisol more. And then we have this crazy cycle of everything that happens and our hormones tank even more and our blood sugar gets even worse because when we're in this stressed state, even when you are not eating, even if you are not having carbs, even if you are fasting, your body goes, oh, stress state, we need sugar. Cortisol gets excreted in your body. It tells your liver to release sugar into your bloodstream. If it doesn't have enough sugar stores in your liver, guess what? It breaks down muscle mass, takes it to your liver, turns it to sugar, dumps it into your bloodstream. Sugar then goes up in your bloodstream. Our body needs something to help bring the sugar into the cells to provide it with energy. How does it do that? Insulin. But insulin brings it into the cells. This is good and dandy. If you are insulin sensitive, if you are insulin resistant, we start seeing insulin stays up, and sugar keeps accumulating in our body because our body is sending that stress signal, right? And so then sugar finally gets to the cells. Oh, boom, we're still not eating. Oh, we're still not having carbohydrates. Okay, we're going to dump more sugar into your bloodstream. So we can actually end up with insulin resistance because we aren't fueling ourselves appropriately and our body perceives that it needs more energy to meet the demands. And this is where a lot of us don't understand. And when we're not eating enough, our body starts deciding, what levers can I shut off? It's like you have all this energy and the head honcho is like, hey, shouldn't have lunch today. We gotta cut something. What are we doing? And they go, okay, hair, boom. Now hair stops growing. It's brittle. Hey, still not getting enough. Okay, skin. So now skin goes from feeling luscious and supple to wrinkly and crepey and thin. Loses its luster, right? Oh, next thing. Okay, bone density goes down. Oh, muscle mass goes down. Okay, so now muscle mass is down. So now our metabolism's worse. We're slowing things down. We're telling our thyroid to burn less calories. And so now we have a body that burns less calories. It's not as efficient. And what this means is because food will stay in our cells for longer or stay in our body longer before going into cells, which increases inflammation even more, increases cortisol more, slows down thyroid more. And so our body gets worse at burning calories. And we're stuck in this storage state. Because if our body sucks at burning calories, it is very easy to gain weight and very hard to lose weight. And so there's so many things here that you need to understand that are contributing to this. And cortisol specifically is also going to break down our gut lining. So that means like undigested foods can pass through that barrier into our bloodstream, which is going to boom, trigger inflammation some more. We're going to see that because we're in this on state all the time. Blood flow goes away from our belly to our arms and legs to fight the bear, run away from the bear, even though we're just pissed off at our boss and secretly scrolling on our phone while we're at work and we're angry, right? Our body doesn't know the difference. And so what happens is because we're getting prepared to fight the bear, run away from the bear, blood goes to our limbs and our brain to make decisions and, save our life. But that means there's no blood flow to the gut. When there's no blood flow to the gut, digestion slows down because there's no oxygen being brought to your gut to help it move along and digest. So bloating starts to increase. Inflammation starts to increase. All of a sudden you're constipated, right? And now we're struggling and then boom, Pants are real tight by the end of the day. And when you're experiencing bloating that gets worse as the day goes on, this is typically what's happening. It's this stressed state response. And we'll talk about how to address that. We also know that with cortisol, you not only see the digestion issues where it's slowing down, and we're feeling like overly full when we eat, right? You're like, oh, but I'm not hungry. It's because you're running on stress hormones and your digestion is so slow and now you're backed up, but not eating enough is also going to stress your body out even more. So we again have to learn, where are we breaking this cycle and how are we doing it? Not to mention, cortisol is also going to reduce your stomach acid, making protein harder to digest, and allows bacteria to overgrow in the wrong areas, which we don't want. That can lead to things like SIBO. And it also promotes dysbiosis, which means we have an imbalance between good bacteria and bad bacteria, which is a huge key driver when we're looking at bloating and inflammation. And so is it your gut that's the problem? Or is it the fact that you're so freaking stressed out from doing everything, not sleeping, exercising the wrong way, not recovering properly, not eating enough food, that is actually the reason that your body is so stressed and your gut is messed up? I don't know, you've worked with thousands and thousands of women, and that's usually what's going on here. This is how we get to this state. We also see a loss of muscle in women. And so what happens is, as we're aging, as we're going through this hormonal transition, the years that follow, our muscle building signal goes down a lot. Muscle breakdown signal goes up. So that's why learning to work out the right way is really important, because what we used to do in our 20s and get away with, we're not getting away with now, because we have to be so much more intentional about how do we keep it. And we know that when we lose muscle, we reduce metabolic flexibility, which means we become more insulin resistant, which means our body is not very good at burning calories either. We're going to see more inflammatory markers as well. And after 40, muscle tends to decline a lot. And so less muscle equals insulin resistance, which equals more blood sugar spikes, which equals more inflammatory cytokines. Inflammation is going to drive up cortisol. It's going to make blood sugar even worse. When our insulin's out of control, we're stuck in that storage pathway. Inflammation blocks that fat burning pathway. And so you're in a very tricky position, right? So it's how are we addressing this, which we'll talk about at the end. So we know we want to make sure that we are maintaining that muscle mass. We also know in perimenopause and menopause, that liver detox pathway that I talked about slows down, because our liver has to process excess estrogen, toxins, inflammatory byproducts. And so the more inflammation we have in our body, and when estrogen goes down, our liver has a lot to deal with. Add some alcohol on top of that, right? All the toxins that we're getting from our environment. It's a lot. That detoxification slows down. And so if your gut is like sluggish, and we're seeing more inflammation there, things seep through to the blood that are not supposed to get there. That puts extra burden on our liver. And so we see that this cycle just keeps getting worse and worse. And remember, I said, if toxins build up in your body, it gets stored into fat mass to protect it from not damaging our organs. But those fat cells are going to emit more inflammation, making things a lot more challenging. And the structure of those fat cells change. So now it makes it a lot harder for your body to break down fat, as if it already wasn't hard enough before, right? So those are some things that you want to, be aware of. This is why it gets challenging. And this shouldn't be frustrating or scary. This should be like, this makes so much sense. I am not broken. I didn't know those things. Now I know them. Now I can make better decisions. So what are the things that you should be doing to improve inflammation? I know this seems like kind of daunting, and I feel like I'm just throwing up all over you verbally, but I get very excited, as you can tell. But this is why we run challenges like the one that we're doing now, because it can be very hard to know what to do and when, for how long, and at what time. Because I like using the golfing analogy. You're going to use that putter at some point in your journey on that green to help you get, the ball in the hole, right? But if you're using the putter at the wrong time, like when you're trying to tee off, you are going to be frustrated. You are going to think that you suck, that there's something that you can do to improve. But the truth is, you're just using the right tool at the wrong time, right? We only want to use the putter at the end, right? We want to use the other things at the beginning. I don't know much about golf, so I don't even know what those are. They're like woods and irons and stuff. I don't know. Not a golfer, but I hope that analogy makes sense. So understanding for you specifically What are the causes are going to dictate what tools you use, when, at what time, in what order, for how long. But here are some good guidelines to start. And I suggest just picking the one that you feel like you are the worst at, because that's going to result in the best change for you. Because if we're improving what we're already pretty good at, we're not going to see a bunch of change. If you focus on improving the part that you know you really struggle at, you will see way more improvements than if you focus on the stuff you're already good at. So number one, prioritizing whole, minimally processed foods. We want to eat foods as close to their natural state as possible. So this means, we're having potatoes instead of potato chips. Very simple example. So avoiding ultra-processed foods, hyper-refined sugars, seed oils, and additives that trigger inflammation. So this does not mean you cannot have carbs. I want to be very, very clear on that. Carbohydrates are great because carbs lower cortisol. Remember what cortisol does? It messes with your blood sugar. It messes with inflammation. It messes with your hormones, your detoxification pathways, your bloating, your digestion, your muscle mass. Carbohydrates can actually help combat that. It's just learning how to eat them, what order, when, what types, right? And so we're looking at whole grain sources. So you can have whole grain bread, believe it or not. I love it. I have it all the time. Sourdough bread is also delicious. You can have whole grain pastas. You can have potatoes. Potatoes, like I mentioned, serotonin is your happy hormone, right? We struggle with that. Potatoes are an excellent source of serotonin. So eat your potatoes and you will be happy. Make sure that you are having fruits in there. Fruits are fantastic sources of carbs that are going to support you. Our whole foods provide you with lots of nutrients to help support digestion and bring that inflammation down. So there's lots of carbohydrates that you can have. We have a carb guide if you want it. It's usually in my social media, but you can just message me there and I'll send it over to you. We want to focus on some anti-inflammatory fat sources. So these are things like extra virgin olive oil. It's rich in polyphenols, which are so good for you. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, mackerel, they're high in omega-3s, which are, again, very important for inflammation. Nuts and seeds, especially things like almonds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds. Try seed cycling. I did a whole podcast on that not long ago on how to use those to support your hormones and inflammation. And then small amounts of avocados and olives are also fantastic. Eating plenty of colorful fruits and veggies. We want leafy greens. We want cruciferous veggies. Cruciferous veggies are so underrated, you guys. This makes a huge difference for your body to be able to detox, supports your liver. When our body can detox well, inflammation comes down. When inflammation comes down, that fat burning pathway opens up. And now fat loss is possible again. And for some people, we see weight loss without even having to touch their calories, which is amazing. Does it happen for everyone? No, because there's usually, other factors going on as well. But cruciferous veggies are great. So this is things like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale. Having a serving of those every day can be wonderful for you. Bright colored produce, red peppers, we've got berries, tomatoes, carrots, beets, all those things. And anything that's rich in polyphenols, fiber, vitamins, and antioxidants, those are all going to help combat inflammation. Polyphenols, you can get lots of teas that are high in polyphenols that are amazing. I believe I have a post already on my Instagram that has a list of this. And if not, it's coming out soon. So it'll probably be out by the time you hit this podcast. We want to include some great sources of protein. So fish and seafood, if you can, grass-fed beef and pasture-raised poultry. I know some of us do not have that option. Eggs are actually fantastic for you, despite what people have thought about cholesterol in the past. Eggs are very, very, very good for you, high in choline, so many benefits. Legumes, the lentils, the chickpeas, the white beans. And then, of course, protein is always going to help support with your blood sugar. It's going to help you stay full longer, hormone balance, support our liver detox pathways, because we actually need enough protein to help support that process. So again, lots of important things there. When we are talking about carbohydrates, like I mentioned, we want to do whole grains, quinoa, barley, oats, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, beets, fruit, squash. Those are all great, awesome things to include. We want to add herbs, spices, polyphenols. So there's turmeric, ginger, garlic, rosemary, oregano, cinnamon, and cumin are all great spices. When we're looking at other things, we're looking at green tea, hibiscus tea, dark chocolate, even a little bit of coffee. We're not running on coffee, just a little bit of coffee. Those all enhance a flavor to make food taste so much better, but also helps fight inflammation at the cellular level as well. And then we need to pay attention to alcohol, you guys, which like sucks to hear. It does. It really sucks to hear. But alcohol, even just a few times a week, is going to raise cortisol, is going to raise inflammation. It's going to make your liver detoxification worse. You're more likely to store those toxins in your fat cells, making weight loss very challenging. And so if you can even reduce it for a short period of time, I know summertime is very challenging because it's patio season, right? Let's be honest. It can be very challenging. Myself, I don't drink anymore. After getting my Dutch test results and seeing how much my liver is struggling, and the inflammation that I'm experiencing and how it's affecting my hormones, it was an easy no-brainer for me, because I want to be here long term. I don't want to, do anything that's going to increase that inflammation and make it hard to get into that fat burning pathway. Because when we can't get into that fat burning pathway, we are more likely to see disease progressions. We don't get the cleanup of cells that happens with that pathway. And so you're more likely to experience cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and even some types of cancer. That's how my mom passed away. She never got to meet my husband. She never got to meet my son. She missed out on so much and is missing out on so much. And I don't want that to be my story. So for me, cutting out alcohol is a very easy option for me. That's the food side of things. The other thing that we want to pay attention to is making sure that you're staying hydrated. So drinking enough water, adding in lemon, cucumber, or mint also helps improve detoxification as well. We know if you are dehydrated, your body will actually decrease urine output. It will make your body hold on to fluid more. And so you're going to end up bloated with more inflammation. By drinking more water, that will help your body flush things out of your system. Moving daily, so getting some walking in, doing some strength training, doing some stretching. When we're sitting all day, we're reducing flow to our legs, right? Like it's harder to get in there if we're sitting in one place all the time. And so we see fluid accumulation in our belly. It happens all the time. So getting up and moving around where you can, building a life around movement. Eating slowly. Oh my goodness. When you eat quickly, you will be bloated. You're swallowing so much air. You're not in that rest and digest portion of your nervous system. There's less blood flow going to your gut, making everything more challenging. So eat slowly. Eat mindfully, chew your food, avoid water around meal times because it will actually change the pH level in your stomach, making it so that certain enzymes don't get released. So then food doesn't get broken down properly, leading to even more bloating, which we do not want. Getting more sleep. Poor sleep increases inflammation, gives you worse blood sugar control, blocks that fat burning pathway, overstimulates that growth pathway. We see this in studies time and time again, where groups will be in a deficit. The only difference is the sleep. The group that has less sleep loses more muscle mass, loses less fat, has worse blood sugar control, and we see all the negative side effects that come with that. Managing stress, in case you haven't figured that out after talking about cortisol today. This means paying attention to not fasting too much. For some women, that's not a good place to be, and we also want fasting to have a start date and stop date. It's not meant to be a lifestyle, and you're doing it for a specific purpose. Fasting is not supposed to be a lifestyle, and fasting is supposed to help open up that fat burning pathway. So fasting isn't working. That tells us things are blocked and you're struggling because you've over abused opening up that fat burning pathway, and now you can't get into it anymore. And it takes more extreme things to send that signal. That's not a lifestyle that we want because we can't maintain it. It doesn't happen. And so understanding that we need to manage stress in terms of, are we eating enough and often enough? Are we adjusting our exercise properly? Are we getting enough sleep? Are we making sure we're not having coffee on an empty stomach? We're not over relying on caffeine. These things make a huge difference. We want to focus on improving our blood sugar control because inflammation brings blood sugar up. Blood sugar that is high is also going to increase inflammation even more. So this is where we want to eat 4 to 5 hours apart a balanced meal, because if we're snacking all day, our blood sugar stays elevated. If our blood sugar stays elevated and insulin stays elevated, we're stuck in that storing pathway. Inflammation gets driven up. We don't want that. So eating breakfast within 90 minutes of waking, we're having 30 grams of protein at every meal. We're trying to have most of our protein and veggies before having any carbohydrates in our meal. If you're having a sandwich, just have some veggies and dip. Like, make it super simple. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. And, we're eating a solid meal every 4 to 5 hours. We're not grazing and nibbling all day. In terms of supporting your liver, we want to have those cruciferous veggies. We want to prioritize that protein because we need protein in order to detox. Otherwise, we're not able to produce the enzymes and stuff that we need. We want to make sure we're getting enough fiber in our day, hydrate, like I mentioned already, reducing that alcohol, supporting your glutathione production. So glutathione is your liver's key detox enzyme. And so to improve it, that's going to come with those cruciferous veggies again. You can supplement with NAC if you like. And then also milk thistle or dandelion root tea. That's what I really like, is a dandelion root tea. I don't love the way it tastes, I'll be honest. It's a little bit strong and nutty for me. So I usually mix it with a green tea, which is high in polyphenols, which is also like a benefit there too. So supporting your glutathione production. Again, balancing your blood sugar, making sure that we are sleeping, avoid over supplementing without a plan, because a lot of people like to take these detox pills thinking it's going to be helpful, but there are different phases of detox, and certain medications and supplements will only target one and can cause more harm than good, cause more symptoms. And so we need to make sure that we are addressing everything through lifestyle and nutrition first. And so we do have an inflammatory grocery list with some recipes that you can download. If you message me, I'll send it over to you. But we do have that challenge because I know this is a lot. I know there's a lot of information. Hopefully from this, you can identify 2 or 3 things that you're like, oh, hydration and cruciferous veggies. Those are 2 things that I can start doing right now. But if you want help to get that momentum going and really figure out what you specifically need for your body, join the challenge. Information is in the show notes for you. I love you so much. I can't believe this is episode 200. So make sure you like and subscribe if you are finding this helpful. I love you so, so much. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.